Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, former friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends as we are chatting some baseball with Jon Jansen of Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, taking a look at the outlook of the Phillies, the NL East outlook, some of the teams that are ascending/declining going into the All-Star break, and we're going to be taking a look at what we might be getting at the trade deadline, as that's going to be coming up very, very soon after we get ourselves just a very fun All-Star break in general. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today. Everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to access their funds for all gambling-related transactions, that all of them do get approved. You get cashback rewards as you use EdgeBoost, and when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a $1 match on your first deposit of up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Saturday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Chicago Cubs get the job done against the New York Yankees by a count of 5-2 as the Yankees, they had a streak of 5+ runs scored in 11 straight games, snapped in this one as for the Chicago Cubs. Very good performance here from Matthew Boyd. 8 scoreless innings. From there, Brad Keller does give up 2 runs in a third of an inning. Aaron Judge took him deep for his 35th home run of the campaign, but Daniel Palencia polishes things off. He gets a pair of outs out of the bullpen to be able to get the save, and it was Carson Kelly who went deep off of Jonathan Loaizaga for his 12th home run of the campaign. And for Max Fried, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. He only lasts 3 innings in this one, now giving up 3+ earned runs in 4 of his last 5 starts. You had Ian Hamilton give you 2 scoreless innings. Loaizaga gives that sole run in his inning of work. Tim L, JT Brubaker, and Scott Effross, they're all able to give you a scoreless inning. You're able to get not a lot of scoreless innings out there in Minnesota. The Twins, they absolutely take it to the Pittsburgh Pirates by a count of 12-4 as Mike Burrows, he was able to give you 4 outs, and he gave up 6 runs, all of which were earned, including a home run. Going deep for the Minnesota Twins, it was home run number 12 of the campaign for Cody Clemens, and then Matt Wallner, 10th home run of the campaign. Willie Castro, 9th home run of the season, and Byron Buxton, 21st home run of the season. Those all come off of Andrew Heaney in relief. Andrew Heaney, he goes in for 2 innings. He gives up 3 solo home runs. You had Genesis Cabrera give up 3 runs in 1 2/3 innings. And you had David Benar. He did not poop the Benar, a scoreless inning, and Yohan Ramirez, he was able to give you 2 scoreless innings. Not quite sure why Andrew Heaney threw long relief, but next, Jack Swiderski was able to go yard in this one. First home run of the campaign as Cole Sands turned as the opener. He went 2 scoreless innings, and then Travis Adams, the bulk guy, gives up that home run. Gives up 2 runs, one of which was earned over the course of 4 innings. Anthony Michevich gives up 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings before Justin Topa, he's able to give you 1 2/3 innings scoreless as well. For the Atlanta Braves, they polish things off, and they get the job done against the Cardinals for a second straight day. 7-6 to finalize for Aaron Bummer. Well, it was a bummer as the opener. 3 runs allowed over the course of 2 innings, including a home run as it was home run number 9 of the campaign for Nolan Gorman. And then Yohan Pozo goes deep off of Rafael Montero for home run number 4 of the season season for Montero. Gives up that home run in his inning work. Joey Wentz, 3 scoreless innings. Dylan Lee, a run given up in an inning. Desmond Hernandez, a run given up in an inning. But Rossio Iglesias, a scoreless inning. And trio bombs here for the Atlanta Braves as you had Phil Matone give one up to Mr. Sean Murphy, 16th home run season. Eric Fetty Wap gives one up to Marcell Ozuna, 13th home run season. And Ronald Acuna Jr. is 12th for Fetty, 3 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. Matone gives up 3 runs in his inning of work as you had Jojo Romero give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And then you had 1 2/3 innings scoreless out of Gordon Gassifo. Ryan Elsley, though, gives up a run in an inning, so he is unable to hold down the fort. And for the Atlanta Braves, they do find a way to persevere, and they do indeed get the job done. The Seattle Mariners were able to get the job done as well. They put up a 15 spot on the Detroit Tigers as George Kirby, not necessarily the starter he was looking for. He gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a home run, as taking him deep, Riley Green, 23rd home run of the campaign, and then Zach McKinstry off of Edward Bizardo gets his 8th home run of the campaign, as for Bizardo gives up that home run, 2 runs in total in a third of an inning. Trent Thornton, though, he goes 2 innings, he allows a run. Matt Brash, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. But for the Seattle Mariners, how about Randy Arozarena getting hot, 16th home run season? That comes off of Chase Lee. For Lee coming out of the bullpen, he gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Casey Mize, not long for this game, he gives up 6 runs over the course of 3 innings. And then Kadir Montero, he was Montero Bull, giving up 3 runs over the course of his 3 innings of work. As for Mize, he gives up a home run to Luke Raley, 4th home run of the campaign. And you had Mr. Julio Rodriguez get his 13th home run of the season. Diedrich Enns, 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And Tommy Kahnle gave up 4 runs without getting it out of the bullpen as Carlos Hernandez holds down the fort. He was able to give you a scoreless inning, but certainly less than amazing there. The Colorado Rockies, shock, shock, surprise, surprise, they lose yet another game, 4-3. The Reds are able to pull this one out as they get a pair in the 9th inning, as you had Mr. Benson, Will Benson, score on an error. As for the Colorado Rockies, they actually got a relatively solid start out of Brandon Blaylock. 5 2/3 innings, he allows 1 run. From there, Jimmy Erget and out of the bullpen scoreless. Tyler Kinley, a run given up in his inning, as he does give up a solo home run. It was Neovali Marte of the Marte Parte getting his 6th home run in the campaign. And for Brady Singer on the flip side, he does give up 3 runs in 6 1/3 innings, including a home run of his own. Grandy for Colorado, home run number 1 of the season and of the career of one Mr. Ryan Ritter. And from there, the Rockies just weren't able to score, as you did have a 1 2/3 innings scoreless appearance from Graham Ashcraft, Emilio Pagan, a scoreless inning to be able to pick up the W. And then for the Colorado Rockies, Victor Vodnik does give up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in that 9th inning, as the error was by Orlando Arcia, and you had Juan Mejia give you a scoreless inning as well. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they do storm back and they get the job done against the Washington Nationals. This by a count of 6-5 for Washington. They actually did not get the world's worst outing out of their young gun pitcher, and I'm going to try to say this last name correct once again because it is very harebrained, as you had August Saura, who he came into the game, gave up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings. Shinonouski Ogasawa, hopefully I said that correctly. Brad Lord, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. Andrew Chafin, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Jose Ferrer, a scoreless inning, and then Kyle Finnegan. He entered in the 9th inning with a 2-run lead, and he gave up 3 runs while getting 1 out. Meanwhile, for the Washington Nationals, you did have your young guys really step up in this game. Dallin Lyle was able to get a 2nd home run the season, and it was home runs number 1 and 2 of the career of Brady House, as House, he was able to go deep off of Brandon Woodruff and Ebner Uribe. Uribe gives up 2 runs in 1 2/3 innings. For Woodruff, gives up a pair of solo home runs in 4 1/3 innings, punched out 10. So out of the 13 outs that he got, 10 punch outs, and then Jared Koenig and Nick Mears combined for 2 scoreless innings. Grant Anderson gives up a run in his inning work, but for the Brewers, they do find a way to be able to persevere and get the job done out there. And the Boston Red Sox, in a low-scoring slog, 1-0. They get the win with Garrett Crochet on the bump. For Crochet, complete game 3 hitter, 9 punch outs, and for Shane Baz, tough luck loser. 1 run allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Edwin Uceta, he gives you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but nothing doing at the plate. Nothing doing at the plate for the San Francisco Giants either. They fall to the LA Dodgers by a count of 2-1. Shohei Ohtani gives you 3 scoreless innings, and then Emmett Sheehan out of the bullpen in long relief. 4 1/3 innings, he allows a run. Alex Vesia, a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Tanner Scott, a scoreless inning. Is for the San Francisco Giants. Landon Roop, pretty good start here. Tough luck loser. 2 runs, 1 of which was earned, allowed in 6 innings. Joey Lucchesi, Ryan Walker, and Tyler Rogers, they're all able to give you a scoreless inning as well. And by the way, for the LA Dodgers, a very rare under for them, as they have been your best over team in all of baseball. Going into the day on Saturday, they had 51 overs, 41 unders, and 2 pushes. And the Seattle Mariners have actually been now a little bit of a better over team. They're now up to 52 overs, 39 unders, and 4 pushes. You've got the Mets, who were able to get the job done against the Kansas City Royals, 3-1. Another Royals under. 36 overs, 58 unders, and a push. They're your best under team currently in all baseballs. For the Mets, you had Juan Soto go deep off of Jonathan Bolin, 23rd home run the campaign. Was supposed to be Michael Lorenzen who got the start, but he got scratched due to illness. Bolin was pretty much your long guy, giving up 2 runs in 3 innings. Anel Serpa, Steven Cruz, both give you a scoreless inning. John Schreiber, 2 scoreless innings. Sammy Long, a pair of outs out the bullpen scoreless, and Lucas Ursech, he comes in for 4 outs. He gives up 1 run, but for the Royals, just nothing doing here. It's 1 to Frankie Montas, gives up a run in 5 innings. Reed Garrett, Chris Stavinsky, they both give you a scoreless inning, and Edwin Diaz, he's able to go for 2 scoreless innings to be able to polish that one off. Doing this before a lot of the later games, so forgive me there, but looks like the Guardians should be able to get the job done against the White Sox, currently up by a count of 4-2. That is in the back half of the 8th inning as Tanner Bybee, 2 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings, but Kyle Manzardo was able to light up Jordan Leisure, 14th home run of the campaign. Leisure comes out of the bullpen, gives up that home run in his inning of work. Sean Burke, relatively solid start, 2 runs allowed in 5 innings, and then Tyler Gilbert, he gives up 1 run over the course of his 2 innings of work as well. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now this is with a few games still pending on the Saturday card, but that said, overall for the season, favorites are hitting at 57.8%, 812 and 594 on the money line. The under is sitting at about 52.4%, 715 unders to 650 overs. And if you're taking a look at what we've gotten over the last 7 days here in Major League Baseball, favorites are at 47 and 40 on the money line. That's only 54%. Meanwhile, the over rate starting to creep up, 44 overs to 41 unders. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Saturday. Now let's take a look at everything that we're going to be getting in the NL East and at the trade deadline with our good friend Jon Jansen. He does such great work over at the Fox Sports Philadelphia The Gambler. He joins me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN family of podcasts.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Jon Jansen aboard. He does such a great job over at Fox Sports Philadelphia The Gambler. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. I know that he's doing a little bit of everything this time of year, and if it's happening out there in the city of Philadelphia, he's got his finger on the pulse of it. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at JJansen34. Come for the sports, stay for the video game and movie reviews. And Jon, it's always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg. And we are at the All-Star break. It's gotten here very fast.
Yes, it certainly has. And how do you take a look at the tenor of the NL East? Because, 2 teams look defined as relatively solid teams as the Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies. And right now, the Miami Marlins are ahead of the Atlanta Braves, and I'm not sure a lot of people saw that coming.
No, not at all. And so, obviously, you saying that means it is a 2-horse race. But I think both horses, there's some flaws there with the Phillies and the Mets. I hate to just make the trade deadline such a big deal. I think it's more of in terms of winning the division, I think the trade deadline means more to the Mets just because the Phillies have the starting rotation capable of going for the rest of the season and being able to hold up strong for the rest of the season. So I think division, Phillies are a little bit more set up than the Mets, so the trade deadline means more there. In terms of winning the National League and in the playoffs, both teams have a lot of work to do. So I hate to say it, but it comes down to the trade deadline and what holes they're able to fill, players that are able to get healthy as well for the Mets and Phillies both. There's a lot of questions for 2 teams that I do think are very good and contenders in the National League.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that trade deadline period is going to be so interesting because we know this, the New York Mets are not going to be sellers. We know that they're going to do everything humanly possible to try to be able to acquire some talent. And for the Phillies, I think that's interesting to look at them because outside of Kyle Schwarber, they just haven't really had that power bat. They've been able to do a pretty solid job of mixing and matching and moving the line. But in terms of that power bat, it's not there. And I think the obvious one, the bullpen needs some work.
Yeah, power is definitely lagging. Good thing is, though, Bryce Harper is getting healthy, certainly has been showing signs of getting better, coming back from an injury in the IL. That, I think, brings you power. And maybe not enough. I know the Phillies have been reliant on power home runs in postseasons previously. I don't think they're as reliant on it this year, which also means their offense has been a little bit worse. But naturally, I think you're just going to get more power out of Castellanos in the second half. You're going to get more power out of Bryce Harper in the second half. The hope is maybe you get more out of JT Realmuto as well. I would say that there is some power in the lineup that they could still tap into. Really, the problem is I just don't think there's any help internally with the bullpen. I know they've been looking at maybe bringing Andrew Painter up at the end of the year and just throw him in the bullpen just to throw some innings. But they're going to need to get a high leverage relief pitcher. They need a Jose Alvarado replacement. And Romano, you were hoping to see signs of getting better and to be that, but he hasn't been. I think now you can count the Romano experiment as not good enough, and they're going to need to go and get a top-tier bullpen arm at the trade deadline. That is, to me, the biggest worry.
Yeah, Jordan Romano has been absolutely terrible. I think everyone knows that one, but I do think that it's also going to be very intriguing to see what they do to be able to address that. As Jon Jansen, who does such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then when you take a look at the Mets side of things, how do you take a look at them? Because their injuries have really racked up with regards to their rotation. Just got back Kodai Senga, but Frankie Montas was not a good idea to start with. I don't know what they were expecting out of Paul Blackburn because he's really not been that good. And I have to think that the Mets are going to be in the market for not just a starting pitcher, but that bottom of the lineup too. We talk about the Phillies not having a ton of power, but at the very least, the bottom of the lineup moves the line. And for the Mets, those bottom four guys have just not done so.
Yeah, bottom four guys, really not. And that's the same thing you can say about the Phillies. So, again, that's why I feel like all the problems are really similar. I think the Mets starting pitching lags certainly behind the Phillies. So I think they're going to need to shore that up, especially, just the top of the line starting, because once you stack up their starting pitching against the rest, and that's kind of what we always knew, even when the Mets were playing well, we kind of always knew that the starting rotation wasn't going to stack up all that well against the rest of the National League. And not to say it's been bad, but once you go into, starting matchups and you start to really put together what would a series look like for the Mets, it just doesn't hold up with the rest of the National League, and especially teams like the Phillies and even the Dodgers. I think they're going to have to shore things up there, but I think their lineup, certainly as you just said, the bottom four, they might need to shore. But again, that's where they're a little bit like the Phillies. You just kind of hope some guys get a little bit better in their lineup and have the pieces there to be able to do so. But really, it's all about pitching and more starting pitching for them. It feels like every team, I don't know about you, Greg, it feels like every team, though, Mets included, could use bullpen help. I feel like every team are going to be saying that. So it's really going to come down to the Mets, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Yankees, all of the above. Who is the one to really spend the money, not the money, but spend the resources to want to get it, to want to put up prospects, to want to really put a package together to get one of the top bullpen arms, because there's not many top bullpen arms and there's a lot of teams that need them. So it's just going to be who's willing to put up the price tag for it.
And I think that's really interesting. There's one team that comes to mind that really doesn't, as that's the Cubs. For the Chicago Cubs, if you look ever since May 1st, a sub-250 bullpen ERA, I think that they're the most intriguing team out there in the National League because they clearly have power. You just look at 1 through 9, it's rock solid. They've been able to do an incredible job of having these guys come from out of nowhere. Chris Flexen, Daniel Palencia, Brad Keller, all of a sudden are finding the fountain of youth for this team. But the one thing that they're missing is a little bit of starting pitching, and I think that that's the team of intrigue right now in the entirety of the National League because I think that they have the highest upside.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because they've had a lot of recent national TV games, and they've just been in the spotlight a little bit. Everybody's paying attention to the fact that they're playing very well. And then you just watch it in action. I got to see them game that they played against the Phillies. That lineup, just looking at the stats, how they approach the plate, hitting, they have power, they have speed. It is a ferocious lineup. I actually think it's one of the most feared lineups to me in the National League. That's always something to pay attention to. And you're right, the bullpen was a little bit of a problem early on in the season. Some frustrating losses because of the bullpen, but they've been better in that area. And it's just finding, better middle of the line rotation guys to be able to round out the starting rotation. They're never going to be able to, I think, compete with a rotation like the Phillies and the Dodgers. But the equalizer, and the Mets don't even know this, it's just their lineup, top to bottom, just has it all. Some of these guys are slugging at ridiculous numbers. But again, it's not just that. They're hitting for average. They're hitting for on-base percentage. They're able to steal bases. They're able to move on the bases. It's just a lineup that I really fear. I think it's a National League lineup that certainly stands above the rest. And to me, it's starting to look like a team that is, because I thought they could do well, but it's not just competing against the Phillies and the Dodgers or the Mets. I think it's starting to become a conversation of, are they just as good as the Dodgers? Are they better than the Phillies? How much better are they than some of the rest of the teams in the National League? I think those conversations could be.
Yep, I think that is going to be really interesting to take a look at the Chicago Cubs moving forward, and that really entire National League playoff race and the wild card race becomes all the more intriguing, as well as Jon Jansen, who does great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, because for as good as the Cubs have been, only 2 games clear of the Milwaukee Brewers entering into Friday. The Brewers, I have no idea how they're doing it, because the team doesn't necessarily have a ton ton of power. The bullpen has not necessarily been that great. Now the starting pitching is looking really good. Getting back Brandon Woodruff is back. The Miz, Jacob Mizorowski has been rock solid, but the Cardinals are also right there in position for a playoff spot. The Reds are intriguing. That entire NL Central, I think, is just full of a bunch of wild cards that I think are going to be worth watching the next few weeks as to which teams are going to buy and sell.
Yeah, certainly with that. And that's, I think, you probably talked about it. One of the most intriguing questions is, like, there are teams and more than enough teams in position to maybe want to buy. They're in wild card spots. They're in playoff spots. They're either close in the division or they hold a wild card spot only a game or two back. There are so many teams in that kind of gray area. It's just when you talk about selling, who does eventually sell? I think there's some natural candidates for that. I think everybody's looking more in the AL Central with Twins and the Guardians. I think the NL Central just becomes intriguing of, like, what does Milwaukee do? Because they're starting to get some really good starting pitching. And the Miz, what he did against the Dodgers, he thought that they lost it when they lost Corbin Burns. And now they could be finding it again in a whole new different way. We have to have a different conversation about Milwaukee, a team that, I might have thought been middling. Now they're clear buyers, but I don't know how much they're going to buy in compared to the Cubs, compared to the Phillies, compared to the Dodgers. So the Central is going to be definitely interesting in who buys. But I think Milwaukee's certainly in a much better position than St. Louis and, of course, even Cincinnati. But Milwaukee has certainly caught my attention just with now how they've been able to retool that starting rotation.
Absolutely. And the Brewers have been just so intriguing, to say the least, thus far this season. And John, as you take a look at things right now, is there a team or two that you're feeling either bullish or bearish on entering into the All-Star break that you think that coming out of the break, either they could be able to surge or they might flop?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I hate to just talk about a team that we already went through, but I really want to emphasize I am so intrigued by the Cubs in the second half. If this lineup can continue what they're doing, they're going to outslug a lot of teams, and it's a postseason lineup. Like, that is a lineup built 1 through 9 to be able to outslug you. And it's just, can they find, pitching at the trade deadline, starting pitching? Do they find starting pitching elsewhere? Whatever the case may be. It's just, they're finding a lot of answers now. And bullpen was a big one that they needed to answer, and they did. And it's just, are they going to be able to find starting rotation piece? I don't think they need multiple, just one, really rock solid starting rotation piece to add into the rotation. But I'm full steam ahead with the Cubs. Like, that's how well they've been playing. That's how good the lineup is. We know that they've been able to get, and it was interesting kind of the offseason they had, and even last year, able to get guys like Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki's now having a power surge. Is what Dansby Swanson going to be like? And even though he's not performing amazing, still like a really rock solid player in their lineup. And then adding in Michael Busch, Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, Pico Armstrong. It's really rock solid. And I think the Cubs not only could be and stay at the top of the NL Central, this could be a race for the top of the National League. They're going to be in that. It's a lineup that is going to have them right there in the race with the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Mets to get that top spot in the National League.
Yep, no question about it. It's going to be so much intrigue to see what we get in the second half of the season. The National League is going to be so much fun. There's a lot of chaos going on in the NL East. Heck, the NL West is going to be very intriguing. Do the LA Dodgers actually get healthy with their pitching? So many questions, and I know that we're going to be finding out the answers together, John. You do such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler. Let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you, and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, very easy. You can just follow me at JJansen34. Obviously, some baseball stuff, but we are getting very, very close to college football season as well. So hopefully going to be talking more about that, NFL. As much as I love baseball, once it hits July, football, unfortunately, it means it's around the corner. So going to be doing a lot more of that. But yeah, just follow all of it at JJansen34.
And John does an absolutely incredible job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. And every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. So big thanks to John for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to be joined by Jon Jansen, who does such great work over at Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and did so once again today. So a big thanks to Mr. John for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started? 901, 902 on the card. The Colorado Rockies are on the road against the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are on to Cincinnati. He's on to Nick Martinez, who gets a start for them, and Austin Gomber hopes to not get gombered up for the Colorado Rockies. Dalton's game is 9.5, the over and the under, both at -110, and for the Reds, anywhere between -230 to -250 is that number on them, +202 to +210 is that number on Colorado. And if you're looking to lay a run half here, FanDuel has the initial opener, so you always know that these are going to be a little bit janky and these are going to be a little bit wonky. But that said, if you're looking to lay that run half, you're going to find that at a -115, and sign me up there. I'm willing to go up to a -134. Recognize that Nick Martinez has not necessarily had the most savory of years, but he does a good job of not giving up a lot of walks and not beating himself. You have to put the ball in play in order to beat him, and this Colorado Rockies team is right now averaging about 3 runs per contest away from home. That is second worst in all of baseball. 45 ERA for Mr. Martinez, but a 4.22 fielding dependent, 1.2 home runs and 2 walks allowed per 9 innings, backed up by a bullpen that has been so-so thus far this season. Emilio Pagan gives up a few too many home runs, but he's got a relatively low ERA. You've been able to get some relatively good production out of Tony Santillan. He's been able to give you sub 350 ERA along Taylor Rogers, and they do once again get to face off against the Colorado Rockies lineup that they are dead last in the big leagues in terms of their on-base percentage away from home. And for the Colorado Rockies, it's just a case where other than Hunter Goodman, you just don't get a ton on the road. I will say Tyler Freeman's hitting above a 300 when he's away from home, but I mean, it has been a disaster class for these guys like an Orlando Arcia, Ryan McMahon, Michael Duglia. These guys on the road hitting below the Mendoza line 200. Jordan Beck has been able to give you a little bit of something as well, but with the Cincinnati Reds, having Austin the Say's kid back is big. Did have that golden sombrero on Friday, but still has been able to give you about a 270 average, a home run every 20 or so at bats. Jose Trevino is doing a nice job moving line, hitting about a 280, and Neovalli Marte, nearly 350 on base. He is a very valuable bat for this lineup because other than Ellie De La Cruz, you really don't have anyone else on this team that's hitting for north of 11 home runs this far this season. De La Cruz obviously doing a bit of everything, 360 on base. He's giving you those 18 plus home runs, sealing those bags, but Gavin Lux gives you 350 on base. TJ Friedel is able to give you 360 on base as well. And for the Colorado Rockies, Austin Gomber had that one really good start to begin the season, but ever since then, things have very much toilet bowled on him. You take out those 5 scoreless innings that he had in his first start of the campaign, and, well, it's been not great to say the least, as ever since then, he has given up a grand total of 16 earned runs over the course of 19 and a third innings. That is a north of 70 ERA, so things are just going completely rise. He's not getting any swings and misses. 4.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, not really giving up a lot of walks. He's given up 5 walks in his 5 starts, so, I mean, he's not doing a bad job there, but he's also given up 5 home runs in 24 and a third innings. So I do think that the Reds are going to do a nice job getting to him here. And I do think that for Nick Martinez, he's able to find it here against the Rockies team that has been rough on offense, as you've got a Rockies team that their bullpen has honestly not been the world's worst, which is why I do like this total under as well. They are in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, but likes of Jimmy Harrigan, Jake Bird, Juan Mejia, they've been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. We have seen a bit of regression with likes of Seth Halverson and company, but I do think that it's just enough for the under, so like the under, and I do like that run line of the Cincinnati Reds. 903, 904 on the betting board. You've got yourself the Washington Nationals on the road facing off against the Milwaukee Brewers, as Freddie Peralta goes for the Crew. Jake Irvin is on the bump for Washington. Washington is a plus 190 to a plus $2 underdog. And between minus 220 to minus 240 is that number on the Crew. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Right now, that initial run line that I'm seeing at FanDuel on the Brew Crew, you're going to be able to get yourself a minus 110, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Nationals. Anything north of plus 190, I was willing to do so. Freddie Peralta has rounded into form. He's pitching much better now than he was at the beginning part of the season. Towards the beginning part of the campaign, it felt like he was laboring a little bit. The strikeout stuff was down, and it still is a little bit down for his career. 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings is actually a career low, but now he's down to about 3 walks per 9 innings. He has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. Still does have, though, a 2.74 ERA compared to a 3.68 fielding dependent. And then on the flip side, you've got yourself a guy in Jake Irvin that has been giving up too much contact. The walks have not really been too much of a concern for him. He's given up in that neighborhood about 3 walks per 9 innings, but the 1.8 bombs per 9, 4.78 ERA compared to a 5.34 fielding dependent. That is very unsightly. He's given up 3+ runs now in 3 out of his last 4 starts, so that's not necessarily great, and actually 4 out of his last 5. And he's backed up by a bullpen that, well, for the Washington Nationals, it is currently dead stinking last in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Just so many guys that are pooping the bed on you. Eduardo Salazar, Jackson Rutledge, Zach Brzezinski, all posting up north of a 4.50 ERA. You've had Kyle Finnegan be relatively solid, and Andrew Chafin now give you some good innings as well. But for this Washington Nationals team, while they average about 3.9 runs per game at home, they average a full run per game more when they're away from home, and they are starting to get a little bit of production out of some of these young guns. Brady House has been able to move the line a little bit for this team, not necessarily supplying a lot of power, but he puts bat to ball. CJ Abrams, he's got 12 home runs this far this season, and 10 of them have come on the road. James Wood is give you good wood. How about a 385 on base, and one of the most underrated home run hitters in all baseball, 24 bombs this far this season. And Josh Bell has looked a little bit better recently. He's up to a double-figure amount of homers, north of 300 on base. And then for the Brewers, this is a unit that is in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Christian Yelich has really been leading the way with that, 19 home runs, and you just have a lot of guys that are getting on base in general. Yelich, Sal Frelick, along with Bryce Terang, you're able to throw in there as well. Jackson Chourio have all been able to give you a double-figure amount of stolen bases, and everyone except for Chourio has been able to give you at least a 345 on base. Even Caleb Durbin, who had a rough start to the season, is up to a 350 on base. They pick up Andrew Vaughn, and he's immediately made contributions for the team, unlike what he did with the White Sox. But this is also a Brewers bullpen that does rank in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of their own bullpen ERA. You do have Nick Mears, Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe. I'll give you a sub-350 ERA, but you had to place Aaron Ashby on the paternity list. Congratulations to him. Rob Zanoski, he's currently dealing with a little bit of an injury as well, and Jared Koenig could be a little bit of a roll of the dice as well. So I do think that you get some scoring in this one, made by total of 8.9. I'm going to be taking a shot on that over. And for the Nationals, anything above a plus 190, I'm in on their money line. 905, 906 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals play the Atlanta Braves. Right now it is undecided for the Bravos, and Sonny Gray goes for the St. Louis Cardinals. So this is a game that is presently off the board. Really not even seeing any sort of like a FanDuel opener or anything like that in this one. But no matter, I've got my handicap because it appears as though Davis Daniel will either be starting or will be a bulk guy for the Braves. And I set the Cardinals at a minus 147 on the money line. We'll go up to a minus 146 there, plus 148 or higher. Looking at the Braves, and then an 8.8 is my total. 8.5 or less, and on the over, a 9 or higher, the under. Sonny Gray, since getting to St. Louis, has an ERA about 2 points lower at home rather than on the road. He has had some very demonstrative home run road splits overall for the season. 3.51 ERA, giving up less than a home run and 1.6 walks per 9 innings. He's got a 2.80 fielding dependent. He has pitched much better than what the raw numbers would indicate. He's had a few blow-up starts this season. He gave up a 6 spot like a month or so ago that has really warped his numbers, but you take a look at what Sonny Gray has been able to do in St. Louis. 2.83 ERA, 4 home runs allowed in north of 63 innings. Meanwhile, when he's been away from home, 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings and a 4.57 ERA. So you do have that dramatic split there. And then if you do get Davis Daniel, which you should be able to get him in like some sort of bulk role, he should be just out there in some form or capacity. Gave up 3 runs in his first inning of the season with the Atlanta Braves. Not going to put too much stock into that. So you take a look at his minor league numbers as he spent a little bit of time with the LA Angels a few seasons ago as well. And he's been solid. 3.52 ERA, triple A Gwinnett. Not a guy that's going to blow you away. 7 strikeouts to 3.8 walks per 9 innings, but does an okay job of inducing soft contact, and he is going to be going up against a Cardinals unit that is in the bottom 8 in the big leagues with regards to their own home runs on a per at-bat basis. Now, you do have for the St. Louis Cardinals quite a few guys that do a solid job moving the line, getting on base. You've gotten that out of Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan. Both of these guys a north of a 285 entering into the weekend, but I mean, it's just a case where you've got a quartet of guys who have been able to give you 10 to 12 home runs. Lars Nootbaar, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and then also Burleson, who I mentioned before, are all in that category. And Arenado's only hitting at 245. He's been a bit of a disappointment this year, and then Contreras up to a 344 on base. They need his bat even more because of Von Herrera one of their main catchers and a guy that's really been able to slug out the deep ball this year, has landed on the injured list, and it's understudying Pedro Paz, only hitting for about a 260 on base. So that's been a bit of an issue, but Victor Scott has been able to get 20 plus stolen bags. He's only been able to hit about a 235, but about a 320 on base as well. So Cardinals, even though they're in the upper half of the big league scene with regards to runs per game, not necessarily jumping off the page at you. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's been a team that's been about league average with regards to their bullpen ERA, but you've been able to have Jojo Romero, Riley O'Brien, Phil Matone really lock in for the team. Sub 275 ERAs out of all those guys. You've had Kyle Leahy do a nice job as well. And after a rough start to the season for Ryan Helsley, he blew like 5 saves early on in the season. He's been able to do a better job for the team, and for the Atlanta Braves, credit where it is due. This is a bullpen that since May 1st, they're in the top 6 in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA, as they've got Desmond Hernandez back after he was dealing with injury towards the beginning part of the season. Aaron Bummer was the opener that we saw on Saturday, and he's been able to do a pretty rock-solid job, as he and Pierce Johnson have both been able to give you a sub-340 ERA. Dylan Lee, Austin Cox, these two guys have been pretty solid as well, but for the Atlanta Braves, this is still a unit that is in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Matt Olson has been solid, 360 on base, 17 home runs, and the Ronald Acuna Jr. injury scare that we saw in Sacramento a few days ago, just a scare, but they might hold him out of this game, just make sure that he's right for the second half of the season. 446 on base, 11 home runs, and that is something that you want to watch. Probably a lot of guys getting a day off here last day before the All-Star break than what you're typically going to find, but you've had also 15 home runs out of Sean Murphy thus far this season, not hitting for a lot of average at a 235, but Marcell Ozuna's moving line, 360 on base. What you need more of, though, Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies. These two guys have combined 13 home runs. Albies is hitting 219 with a 291 on base. Harris is hitting a 206 with a 230 on base. You just need a bit more there. So I do think that for the Cardinals, they should be a nice size favorite here. I'm willing to lay up to minus 146 on that money line, plus 148 or higher. Looking at the Bravos, and then 8.5 or less, like the over 9 or higher, the under. 9-7, 9-8 on the card. The Giants are going to be playing against the LA Dodgers. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the bump for the Dodgers, and Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another start, and your total on this game is 8. Under is minus 115, the over is minus 105. Between minus 130 to minus 140 is that number on the Dodgers, and between plus 112 to a plus 121 is that number on the Giants, and I'm going to be willing to take the Giants if we can get to a plus 123, which when it's all said and done, I'm thinking that we should be able to do so. Like right now, if you're looking to lay a run half with the LA Dodgers, this is again an initial FanDuel opener. You're only going to be getting about a plus 126. I would have needed closer to about a plus 136 with Robbie Ray. He has been able to do a very solid job for the Giants this season. The guy that for his career entered into the campaign with north of 3.5 walks allowed per 9 innings, was always giving up the deep ball right around about 1.4 to 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. And while his whiff rate is down a little bit, he's still getting some good swing and miss stuff. He still is posting up about 9.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but for his career, he's more around about 11. He has been able to do a better job of being able to just hone in and not beat himself. 1 home run and 3.3 walks allowed per 9 innings, so that's good for a 2.63 ERA, and he's been really dialed in recently. 3 earned runs or fewer given up in each of his last 5 starts, and for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he is coming off of a less than savory start against the Milwaukee Brewers, who all of a sudden have gotten as hot as lava. Gave up 5 runs, 3 of which were earned in 2/3 of an inning, so you have to expect a little bit more here after he had been looking relatively solid prior to that start. He had given up a combined 4 runs in his previous 3 starts. Overall for the season for Yamamoto, 2.77 ERA, but the walks are starting to creep up, about 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, about a 3.30 fielding dependent, and he is backed up by the far lesser bullpen in this one. For the San Francisco Giants, they have been experiencing a little bit of regression with this bullpen, but you've got the likes of Eric Miller, Camilo Duvall, Randy Rodriguez, who have been able to give you a sub 3.25 ERA. They've been able to do a nice job on that front. And then on the flip side, you've got yourself an LA Dodgers team that they do get Michael Kopech off the injured list. He's been able to do a rock solid job. Jack Dreyer has been able to give you about a sub 3.50 ERA, but Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates posting up north of a 3.50 ERA. These guys have been a little bit rough, to say the least, and I do think that for the LA Dodgers, it's going to come down to making this game a slugfest. You've got Shohei Ohtani, who's been able to give you north of 30 home runs and north of a 375 on base. You've got, obviously, Will Smith getting jiggy with it. He's done a great job moving the line, getting on base for north of a 420 on base, and you've had Andy Paz slow down a little bit with regards to power, but he's still getting on. He's hitting at 285. He's had 17 home runs this season. Teoscar Hernandez has been able to give you north of 50 RBI. He's been able to supply 14 plus bombs. Mookie Betts has honestly been a little bit down with regards to his production, and Michael Conforto has had a little bit of a rough season as well, but for the Dodgers, additionally, this is going to be a bullpen that is quite spent, as Shohei Ohtani gave you a little bit more length yesterday, which you do like to see, but for the San Francisco Giants, having that number one bullpen, coupled with a team that I think that they're going to find it a little bit more on offense. Rafael Devers, ever since getting to the Giants, has been posting up less than a 350 on base and only 2 home runs entering into yesterday. He should be able to give you a bit more. Casey Schmidt just comes off the injured list. He's been able to give you about a 350 on base. Matt Chapman, he's been able to supply a double-figure amount of bombs. He's another guy that gives you about a 355 on base. Not a ton of power right now with the Giants, but Willy Adames, 5 home runs over the last 3 weeks. He seems to be starting to find it a little bit more as well. So, circumstance where I do think that for the Giants, they are able to get to Yamamoto a little bit, but I think that Yamamoto and Ray are both going to be relatively solid, give you some good starts here. Semi-total at 7.7. I like the under, and if I can get the Giants at a plus 124 or higher, I'm going to be looking at them on the money line. 9-9, 9-10 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies are on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. Nick Pivetta is on the bump for the Pods, and Christopher Sanchez is on the bump for the Phillies. And the Phillies to find themselves anywhere between minus 122 to minus 132 favorites, and between plus 108 to plus 115 is that number on San Diego. 7.5 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And for the Padres, I did set them as the favorite of minus 116, so I do think that the Phillies being the favorite is wrongfully so. I'm going to be looking at the Padres at a plus number on the money line for Nick Pivetta. He has just been absolutely supreme when he's been at home this far this season. On the road for Pivetta, he's giving up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, rocking a 4.09 ERA. At home, that goes down to a 2.30 ERA, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He's a little bit of a fly ball pitcher. Pitching out there at Petco has been his best friend, as I still recall when he was with the Boston Red Sox all those years, just always had struggles giving up home runs, but I do think that he's going to continue to be able to excel at home. And for Christopher Sanchez, he's had a really nice season. 2.59 ERA, just 0.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings, has been great at home, has been great on the road, but the bullpens are going to be what decide this, in my opinion. You've got a Philadelphia Phillies bullpen that is currently outside the top 22 in terms of their bullpen ERA. Right now, they are posting as a collective about a 4.40. You've had Orion Kirkering be able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but I mean, other than that, Tanner Banks has been able to give you a sub-3.30 ERA, but the likes of Matt Strahm, Max Lazer, throw in there as well, Jordan Romano, all these guys posting up north of a 3.50 ERA. It's been a bit of an issue, and for the Philadelphia Phillies, they're about league average with regards to home run power. Kyle Schwarber has carried them. 30 home runs, north of a 380 on base, and then you've got Trey Turner down for what? He's been able to give you 11 home runs, 24 stolen bags, about 345 on base. He's been rock solid. Getting back Bryce Harper is big, as he, Max Kepler, Nick Castellanos, all between 10 and 12 home runs thus far this season. And in the case of Alec Boehm and Nick Castellanos, both thinking about a 275 to a 285. So I mean, you've got guys that are doing a nice job moving the line. Even JT Realmuto now hitting above a 250, but that home run power not being there, that's a bit of an issue. And for the San Diego Padres, this has been a relatively pedestrian lineup this season. Kevin Cheats, Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, all between 14 and 17 home runs thus far this season, and I mean, all three of these guys have been able to give you a relatively solid on base, especially Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr., both north of a 340 on base. Luis Arraez has been able to give you about a 280 average as well, but then you've got Xander Bogaerts, Jackson Merrill. They have both been able to hit about a 255 to 265, and Merrill's been regressing, but Bogaerts is starting to give you actually a little bit of bang for your buck, so you like that. But I will say the catcher spot has been rough. They were relying upon Jason Hayward to be a big part of this team, and well, they had to DFA him because he was completely useless. And for the San Diego Padres, this bullpen, I do think is going to be able to get the job done for them. You've had so many guys that will be able to give you a sub-350 ERA this season, and Jason Adam along with Aubrey Monajon. These have been the main two guys in this bullpen that have really stepped up. Both have been able to give you a sub-175 ERA, and then additionally, when you've got the likes of Jeremiah Estrada, Yuki Matsui and company coming in there holding down the fort, recognize that Matsui has seen some negative regression recently, but I do think that for the San Diego Padres, they do find a way to get the job done. Robert Suarez was having a little bit of a rough time with saving and closing out games a few weeks ago, but he seems to have figured that out. So I did set my total at a 7.6, along with Padres on the money line. I'm going to be taking a look at this 7.5 over. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox play also the Tampa Bay Rays. Ryan Pepiot is on the bump for the Rays, and Brian Bayo goes for Boston. Boston does find themselves between minus 120 to minus 130 favorites, between plus 104 to plus 110 is that number on the Rays. 9 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. We're going to be willing to ride with the over. I did set my total at a 9.1 for Brian Bayo. He's actually rounded into some very solid form. Not a guy that's going to go out there and get you a whole bunch of whiffs, but he's a sinker ball pitcher that's able to keep the ball on the ground, and that allows him to not give up as much hard contact and allows him to be able to get some of those double play balls. As for Mr. Bayo, 0.9 home runs and 3.6 walks allowed per 9 innings, only about 7 strikeouts per 9, but 3.27 ERA. That is backed up by 4.37 fielding independence, so do want to be mindful of that, but still has given up 2 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts, 3 runs or fewer in all 5 of them, and he does have to go up against the Tampa Bay Rays team that has been a top 8 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Junior Caminero and Brandon Lau have been absolutely amazing for the team. A combined 42 home runs between these two guys, both hitting above a 250, and Yandy Diaz, over the last 45 days, is hitting north of a 350. He's up to 14 home runs this season. Bottom of the fold, the catcher spot, Cameron Misner, Taylor Walls, you need a little bit more there. They're only below a 220, but you got Jose Calabrio, who only hits for about a 222, but has been able to give you 316 on base. He's up to 31 stolen bases. Chandler Simpson, he's been one of the best bag stealers in all baseball. 26 stolen bases, hitting above 300. That has been absolutely amazing as well. And for the Boston Red Sox, you're now getting Masataka Yoshida back in the fold. He's going to be big in the second half of the season. Not really a power guy, but a guy that's able to find a way to be able to get on base. And you've got quite a bit of that. Carlos Narvaez is able to give you about a 350 on base. Ronnie Gonzalez is hitting a 333. He has been great this far this season. Then something like a Rob Refsnyder is hitting about a 270. So Don Rafael is now hitting at 270. He's been able to give you 13 home runs. Trevor Story, along with Weiler Abreu, 15 plus home runs apiece. Story's now hitting above a 250 as well. So you're starting to get some good production there. And for the Red Sox, surprisingly, they actually have the better bullpen ERA. Now, the Rays still have the likes of Eric Orze, Manuel Rodriguez, Pete Fairbanks, a lot of guys that are giving you a sub-3 ERA, but for the Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman has been an absolutely incredible closer for them this far this season. He's up to a sub-125 ERA. He is getting 13.5 strikeouts per 9 innings since coming over from the Twins. Jorge Alcala, in 11 appearances, has only allowed 1 earned run, so he's been rock solid there. Likes of a Greg Weiser, Justin Wilson, these two guys have been able to give you a sub-350 ERA as well, so bullpen is starting to round into form a little bit more as well, and I do think that for Ryan Pepiot, even though the swing and miss stuff is starting to improve a little bit, it was down towards the beginning part of the season. Now he's giving you closer to about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. I do think that he is going to have a little bit of regression here, 3.32 ERA compared to a 4.20 fielding independent, as he's given up 3 walks, 1.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and do think that the Red Sox find a way to get the job done. So my total 9.1, I like the over and the Red Sox up to a minus 125 on the money line. 9.13, 9.14 on the card. The Seattle Mariners are on the road against the Detroit Tigers. Captain Jack Flaherty is on the bump for the Tigers, and Logan Gilbert goes for Seattle. Seattle's right now about even money to minus 105. Meanwhile, between minus 110 to a minus 120 is that number on Detroit, with 8 being the total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. I did set the Mariners at a minus 117, so I do think that they should be the favorite. I like them on the money line. For Logan Gilbert, he has been an absolute strikeout machine. Does need to cut down on the fact that he is giving up about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but still has been able to supply this team with a 3.88 ERA compared to about a 3.18 fielding independent. How about 12.8 strikeouts per 9 innings? And Captain Jack Flaherty has been able to give you 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 3 plus runs allowed in 6 out of his last 8 starts. 4.70 ERA, 1.6 home runs, and 3.6 walks allowed per 9 innings. That's a little bit of an issue. And for the Tigers, this has been about a league average team in terms of their bullpen ERA. Now, I believe that their bullpen is much better than this because the top guys have all been able to do a very solid job for this team, mixing and matching. You've got likes of a Brand Herter, who you're able to utilize as an opener, Will Vest, Tommy Canely, Chase Lee. These guys have been able to give you a sub-327 ERA. Brendan Hennefy is starting to round into form a little bit more as well. And then you do have a Seattle Mariners team that they're sort of the same way, though Seattle has a little bit of better metrics. The top guys have been absolutely tremendous for the team. Andres Munoz, the closer, Matt Brash, throw in there, Gabe Spire, all these guys give you a sub-275 ERA. Edward Bazardo, also a sub-275 ERA. And for the Seattle Mariners, about 5.1 runs per game away from home this season. That is a top 4 mark in the big leagues, with big dumper Cal Raleigh entering into Saturday with 38 home runs and a 375 on base. He has been remarkable, but so has J.P. Crawford, give you about a 389 on base. Julio Rodriguez or a Polanco, both of these guys have combined for 26 home runs. They're both hitting between about a 245 to a 255. Ben Williamson, not a ton of power, but he's doing an okay job of being able to move the line as well. And I do think that this is one of these cases where the Seattle Mariners do do get a little bit more of Logan Gilbert than the Tigers get out of Captain Jack. I did set my total at an 8.7, so here at a 8, I am certainly going to be willing to take a shot on that over, and I do like the Seattle Mariners on the money line. 9:15, 9:16 on the card. The Walker Texas Rangers at the road they're facing off against the Houston Astros. Hunter Brown is on the bump for the Astros. Nathan Eovaldi goes for the Rangers. Rangers are between a plus 112 to a plus 120 underdog. Minus 130 to minus 140 is that number on Houston. 7 is the total. Over is minus 115 to minus 120. Under is between even at minus 105. I did set my total at a 7.1, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over for Hunter Brown. He did have that rough start last time out against Cleveland Guardians. He does give up 6 runs there, but he has given up, I believe, 2 runs or fewer in all but 3 of his starts thus far this season. Might be 4, but I mean, he is posting up a sub 225 ERA. He's been able to give you north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's in that neighbor about 3 walks per 9, but also less than 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. This guy has absolutely excelled. He has been tremendous, and I think that he's going to bounce back after that rough start. Now, I will say for the Texas Rangers, entering the day on Saturday, first 10 games in the month of July, a combined 70 runs scored on offense. I had been waiting and waiting for this offense to erupt. They seem to have finally erupted, as you tell that Corey Seager towards the beginning part of the season, and when he had initially come off the injured list, was not right. Enters into Saturday with 13 home runs, hitting about a 270, much of that coming over the last about 21 or so days. Wyatt Langford has been able to give you 15 bombs as well, now hitting about a 245. It's not great, but Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia are up to a double-figure amount of bombs, both hitting about a 235, so you're starting to get a little bit more there. Jake Berger continues to be a disappointment. Kyle Higashioka is not giving you a whole heck of a lot, but I mean, it's getting better for the team. And for the Houston Astros, they are dealing with that injury to Jeremy Pena, but Isaac Paredes has been able to supply 19 home runs, north of a 350 on base. Jose Altuve, he's back to being the Jose Altuve of old. 16 home runs, aiming for north of 270. Would like to see Yenier Diaz along Christian Walker give you above a 295 on base, but both have been able to give you 12 home runs this far this season, and Cam Smith, right around about a 340 to a 350 on base. He's been able to excel there as well. And these have been 2 very rock-solid bullpens. These are 2 teams that are in the top 8 in the big leagues with regards to their bullpen ERA. For the Texas Rangers, it's been a little bit mix and match with regards to the long guy, but Jacob Latz has really been able to fortify that, as he's been able to give the team about a 3 ERA. And then you've got the likes of Robert Garcia, Chris Martin, Hobie Milner giving you a sub-3 ERA. And then you've, on the flip side for the Houston Astros, the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Caleb Borer, you've got Dubin, throw in there as well Josh Hader. All these guys give you a sub 325 ERA. So I do think that in this case, you do find the Astros being able to get the job done, as Nathan Eovaldi, typically when he's come off the injured list, just has not been quite as sharp. His first start off the injured list, that was very much less than tremendous. Now, I will say last time out, he did look pretty solid, as for Mr. Eovaldi was able to go out there against the LA Angels, 1 unearned run, give it up in his 6th inning. So that's something that you do like to see. And for Nathan Eovaldi overall this season, he has been quite good, as he is posting up a 162 ERA, 229 fielding dependent with 1.4 walks and 0.4 home runs per 9 innings. But do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression with both of these starters, and I do trust in the Astros a little bit more. Set the Astros at a minus 144, like them on the money line, and here with this total at 7, set mine at a 7.1. I like the over. 9:17, 9:18 on the card. The Cleveland Guardians are on the road facing off against the Chicago White Sox. Aaron Savali is on the bump for the White Sox, and Joey Cantillo goes for the Guardians. Guardians do find themselves as a relatively mid-sized favorite. You're going to be find this between a minus 130 to a minus 135, anywhere between about a plus 118 to a plus 110 is that number on Chicago. 8.5 is the total. Over is between minus 115 to a minus 120. Under is between even a minus 105. And I set the Guardians at a minus 143. I'm going to be willing to bet them on the money line. For Joey Cantillo, overall for the season, right around about a 370 ERA, well above 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but was spending most of the year in the bullpen. He made like 21 relief appearances. They sent him down to the minors to stretch him out. First 2 starts since joining the rotation, 7 1/3 innings, so the length is lacking a little bit, but 12 strikeouts and 3 runs allowed. You're certainly going to take that. And for the Cleveland Guardians, this is a bullpen that's now about league average. I just was not thrilled about the fact that they brought in Paul Sewald, Hunter Gaddis, Jacob Junis, posting up north of 3.5 ERA in the bullpen has not been great, but now you get Eric Sabrowski back. He and Cade Smith have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've been able to get some good long relief out of Kobe Allard as well, which, he might be called upon in this game. And for Aaron Savali, it's been less than tremendous for him as well. North of a 5.40 ERA overall this season. He's giving up about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in 7 out of his last 9 games, and both of these offenses are in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. For the Cleveland Guardians, it's just a very top-heavy lineup at this point, as Jose Ramirez has been great, hitting just below 318 home runs, and then Steven Kwan is setting the table, hitting for about a 345 on base, 285 or so average. Carlos Santana, not amazing with regards to his hitting, but about a 330 on base, 11 home runs, he'll take that, but just a cavalcade of different guys that entered into Saturday hitting a 215 or lower. Daniel Sheeman, Kyle Manzardo, and I recognize that Manzardo has 13 home runs, but he's in this fold. Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio, Will Wilson, John Kenzie Noel, David Fry, all these guys are hitting at 250 or lower. Nobody with north of 290 on base, and for the Chicago White Sox, it's just a very powerless team. Bottom 3 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, as you've got 2 guys in Andrew Benintendi along with Miguel Vargas who have hit 10 home runs thus far this season, and that's about it with regards to power of this team. Lennon Sosa has been able to move the line a little bit. I believe that he's now up to 8 home runs and hitting north of 265, so that'll give you a little bit of something. And Luis Robert is up to 9 home runs as well, but Luis Robert is full of just a log jam of different guys that are hitting a 221 or lower. That includes Mr. Vargas. That includes Michael A. Taylor, throwing there Joshua Palacios, Josh Rojas, Vinny Capra, himself, Luis Robert. So you're just not getting a lot offensively from this team, and it's a White Sox team that is in the bottom 10 in terms of bullpen ERA. They've got Mike Vasil back in the bullpen. That's big, but they had to use him up for like 3+ innings on Friday, so he's probably not going to be available here. Dan Altavia, Steven Wilson will be able to give you a sub-2 ERA, but when you get into the likes of Grant Taylor, Jordan Leisure, or Brandon Eisert, these are guys that are posting up an ERA above a 235. Tyler Alexander has been relatively good as a long guy, but he's doing for a little bit of regression as well. So I do think that for Joey Cantillo and company, the Guardians do find a way to get the job done in what I expect to be a little bit of a lower scoring game. So my total at 8.1, so I'm going to be in on this total under, and I do like the Cleveland Guardians on the money line. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Toronto Blue Jays are on the road against the Athletics. Jeffrey Springs is on the bump for the A's, and Jose Barrios is on the bump for the Jays. The Jays do find themselves anywhere between minus 132 to a minus 144. The A's find themselves anywhere between plus 118 to a plus 122. Jays and A's, I like that, but total on this game, 10.5. The under is minus 120, and the over is even, and with the Athletics, I set them at a plus 132. So right now, I'm seeing that minus 132 out there for the Blue Jays. That's the max I'm going to be willing to lay, but I'm willing to lay the minus 132. Jose Barrios has always had very demonstrative home and road splits throughout his career. He's actually been better on the road than he has been at home this far this season, which I find to be very, very strange. I don't know what sort of world I'm living in, and for Jose Barrios, it's not as if he has been like some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that, but he's been able to do a relatively solid job of being able to get some swings and misses, probably doing for a little bit of regression on his 3.53 ERA. Is his fielding independence more around about a 4.05. He's giving up about 3 walks per 9 innings, but still, for Jose Barrios, it's been very effective for him. He has given up 0 1 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Now, he's also given up 6 runs in 2 out of his last 5 starts, so, it's been up, down, and all around, and as we know in Sacramento, the runs have been flowing like wine thus far this season. As for Sacramento, you've got Brent Rooker who's going to be partaking in the home run derby, giving 19 home runs. Tyler Soderstrom is starting to regress a little bit with that power, but 17 home runs, both of these guys hitting north of 265. Jacob Wilson has been in and out of the lineup over the last few days. Wouldn't doubt it if they just decide to rest him for the rest of the shall we say, first half until the second half gets started. But he's been hitting at 335 for the Athletics. You've had someone like a Luis Urias be able to step up. He's been able to supply about a 320 on base, a little bit of power there. And Lawrence Butler, 14 stolen bases, 320 on base, 13 home runs. That's been rock solid. What has been rough for the A's has been this bullpen, currently dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got Sean Newcomb, Michael Kelly, a pair of guys that have been able to give you 12 plus innings apiece, be able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA, and nobody else on the roster is giving you a sub-370 ERAs. The likes of Hogan Harris, Elvis Alvarado, Jack Perkins, JT Ginn and Juice, Mason Miller, they've all been having their issues, and for Miller, I've been very surprised at the issues that he's having this far this season. And for the Blue Jays, it's not a team that has been remarkable with regards to their bullpen. They don't necessarily have that one guy that you star as being just locked down, but 362 bullpen ERA entering the day on Saturday. That's a top 8 mark in the big leagues, as you've got the Killer Bees in Brandon Little along with Braden Fisher, who have been very good in this bullpen. Both of these guys have been able to supply you with an ERA below a 2.35. Uriel Rodriguez, as a long guy, has been able to give you a sub 2.55 ERA. You've been able to get some better appearances recently out of Chad Green as well. With the Yimi Garcia injury, they have very much needed it. And for the Blue Jays, it is a unit that has been providing less than 4 runs per game when they've been away from home, but the offense is starting to improve. They had a lot of, shall we say, lack of power towards the beginning part of the season, but now Edison Barger, Bo Bichette, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. all up to 12 home runs this season. In the case of Guerrero, he's been able to give you about a 380 on base. You've been able to get a really good production out of George Springer, 370 on base, 16 home runs, and then Ernie Clement, Alejandro Kirk, don't call their name. They're both hitting above a 285. They're moving the line. Nathaniel Lukes, about a 375 on base. Even with having Anthony Santander, Andres Jimenez banged up, this team has been able to find some good offensive flow, and you've had a Athletics team that has just given up runs upon runs. I do think that in the end, Buddy-Osa is going to be able to do a solid job. And for Jeffrey Springs, it is concerning that his ERA is nearly a full point higher when he is at home rather than when he is on the road. And you've got that for most of these Sacramento pitchers. 3.92 ERA, but he's coming into form very well. He has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in each of his last 5 starts. Only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, though. 3.92 ERA, but closer to 4.79 fielding independent. I do think that the Blue Jays get to him. Did somebody told 10.2, so you're at the 10.5. I like the under, and for the Blue Jays, we'll lay up to a minus 132 on that money line. 921, 922 on the betting board. It is the Miami Marlins on the road against the Orioles, as Brandon Young goes for the O's, and Yuri Perez is on the bump for the Marlins. And the Marlins are a bit of an underdog here of between plus 105 to a plus 112. Meanwhile, between minus 115 to minus 125, that number on Baltimore, 9 to 9.5 is the total on the 9. Overs minus 115 to minus 125. Unders between minus 105 to a plus 105 on the 9.5. Unders minus 120, and the over is even. And I set the Orioles at a minus 136, so I'm going to be one to back them on the money line. Yuri Perez had quite a few rough starts coming off of the injured list. He missed the entirety of the 2024 campaign due to major surgery, but he does seem to be surging a little bit more here in the last few starts. As for Yuri Perez, a combined 1 run allowed across 11 innings in those last 2 starts against the Minnesota Twins and the Cincinnati Reds, a combined 15 punch-outs. I don't know if he can quite duplicate that, but he's been able to do a nice job of keeping the ball in the yard in all of his starts this far this season. Just 2 home runs allowed in 27 innings. He is giving up the 3.7 walks per 9 innings, and that's a concern. And for Brandon Young, he was pretty solid at the minor league level. First few starts were less than savory at the big league level, but he has now given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all but one of his starts, so he's starting to round into form. 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Again, with him, it's the walks, 4.5 walks per 9 innings. And for the Miami Marlins, I will give them some credit. This is a bunch that when they have been on the road thus far this season, they've been averaging in that neighborhood of about 4.8 to 4.9 runs per contest. They were shut down yesterday, as both teams were really shut down yesterday, but so you've got a Marlins team that they're doing a nice job moving the line. You don't have a ton of power. Augustin Ramirez and Kyle Sowers have been able to combine for 30 home runs as far this season, but it's a lot of station-to-station baseball. Dane Myers is sitting at 280. Xavier Edwards about a 350 on base. You've been able to get some really good production out of Otto Lopez, who's giving you 9 home runs, hitting at 250. Abierto Hernandez is hitting above 300, so I think these guys are starting to step up. And for the Baltimore Orioles, this team overall for the season is in the bottom 10 with regards to runs per game, but you've been able to get back Jordan Westberg, Colton Cowser. These 2 guys should be able to make an impact. Cowser just has not been able to give you a ton recently, but that said, you've got Ryan O'Hearn, Gunnar Henderson, both hitting north of a 275, both give you a double-figure amount of bombs, and in the case of O'Hearn, about a 385 on base. Jackson Holiday has been able to give you 10-plus home runs. He's been able to hit north of a 255, so these guys are rounding into form, and Ramon Laureano has been a really nice find for this team, and you've got a pair of bullpens that are in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Now, for the Miami Marlins, it feels like they're starting to find something with Anthony Bender, Lake Bakar, Ronnie Enriquez giving you a sub-3.5 ERA, and for the Baltimore Orioles, Felix Bautista, he's going to be the best closer in this game. And Sir Anthony Dominguez, sub-3.5 ERA, but Yunier Cano, don't you know, he's got north of 4 ERA. Andrew Kittredge, Gregory Soto, north of 3.75 themselves. Makes it a very interesting ordeal. I do think that there's going to be runs in this game. I said my total of 9.2, between a 9 to a 9.5. Personally, I would rather take the 9.5 under rather than the 9 over. I'm willing to bank on Young and Perez positively progressing here, so I'm going to be taking a shot on the under, and I'm willing to lay up to a minus 135 on that Orioles money line. 923, 924 on the card. The Chicago Cubs are on the road against the New York Yankees. Will Warren is on the bump for the Yanks, and Shota Imanaga goes for the Cubs. And the Cubs do find themselves as a mid-sized underdog. You're going to be getting them between about a plus 105 to a plus 114. Meanwhile, you've got between minus 125 to a minus 133, with that number being for the New York Yankees, 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Chicago Cubs. I actually set them as the minus 115 favorite. I just don't trust in Will Warren at this point. Even though Will Warren's fielding independent indicates that there should be a lot of positivity, like for Will Warren, he's getting about 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. The walks have been less than savory. He's been giving up about 4.1 walks per 9 innings, but I mean, really past that, he's not giving up too much of the deep ball, less than a home run per 9 innings, but he's giving up a lot of doubles power. He's putting a lot of guys on cheaply. He is really jacking up his pitch count, and he is backed up by a bullpen. Then it has been rough for the New York Yankees recently. If you take a look ever since May 1st with this New York Yankees bullpen, it has been a bottom 10 unit in all of baseball. You've had Yuri De Los Santos go on the injured list. You've had Ian Hamilton be able to step up a little bit more with regards to his bullpen, but all in all, you're just going to need to get a little bit more out of some of these guys. Devin Williams has been miserable all season. Luke Weaver, since coming off the injured list, has not been himself as well, so you've got a lot of guys that you're trying to mix and match with, and it's not necessarily going well on that front. Meanwhile, for the Chicago Cubs, number one team with regards to bullpen ERA, really since May 1st now, do think that there's going to be regression. We started to see that as entering into the series, you had Chris Flexen, Daniel Palencia, throw in there Drew Pomerantz, so many guys posting up a sub-2 ERA, Brad Keller, a sub-285 ERA, and you do have to feel like that's going to be going a little bit northward, but I mean, for the Chicago Cubs, this team is right there with the LA Dodgers in terms of most runs per game. Seiya Suzuki, along with Pete Crow Armstrong, 25 home runs apiece thus far this season. Even Carson Kelly, who was in the lineup yesterday, he's up to 12 bombs, and he's been able to give you a 375 on base. Kyle Tucker, a 385 on base with 15 plus home runs. You got just so many guys. Michael Busch, 18 plus home runs, 375 on base. 1 through 9 is all fearsome for this team. And for the New York Yankees, Paul Goldschmidt, since the beginning part of June, has been giving you less than a 300 on base. That's been a little bit of an issue. Now you've got Cody Bellinger, who had that 3 home run game earlier in the series. He's been solid, in Jazz Chisholm has gave you a home run every about 14 or so at bats. He's up to about a 350 on base, along Trent Grisham, who's giving you 15 home runs, and Aaron Judge, 465 on base. He has been able to fly out 35 home runs. Bottom full with guys like Oswaldo Peraza and company have been a little bit rough. Same with Anthony Volpe, but I do think that you're going to get plenty of scoring in this game. So by total 9.2, I like the over. And for Shota Imanaga, while I'm willing to back him, I do think that there's going to be a bit of regression with his ERA as well. As for Shota Imanaga right now, 280 ERA, but and he's only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 as well. So I do think that there is going to be some negativity there, like the over, and I do like the Cubs money line as well. 925, 926 on the card. The New York Mets are on the road against the Kansas City Royals, with Noah Cameron going for the Royals, and Clay Holmes is on the bump for the Metropolitans. Mets are between minus 130 to minus 137 favorites, and between plus 112 to plus 120 is that number on Kansas City. 9 is the total, the under is minus 120, and the over is even. And with the Metropolitans, I did set them as a minus 127 favorite on the money line. If you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Mets, this is an initial FanDuel opener, so not the world's greatest number. It's a plus 116. I would need more like a plus 132, and even if you get like a minus 130 in terms of getting a run half with the Royals, if you don't get to a plus 127 or greater, I would be willing to consider that. For Noah Cameron, he's actually been very dominant ever since he's come up to the big league level. His strikeout stuff is not necessarily there. He's getting about 6.5 or so strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been okay in terms of not dealing walks. Hasn't necessarily been like incredible, but 2.8 walks, 1 home run allowed per 9 innings, but 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in 9 out of his first 11 starts. So he has really excelled there with many of these starts coming at home. He does have to face off against a Mets lineup that it feels like they're starting to find a bit of something they did towards the back half of that game on Friday, as you've got a quartet of guys at the top, all with at least 17 home runs thus far this season. Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, they're all hitting at least a 255 as well. In the case of Soto, he's up to a 400 on base. Alonso about a 370 on base, and then Jeff McNeil, 9 home runs, hitting about a 340 on base. The problem is the bottom of the lineup, the guys like Brett Beatty, Tyrone Taylor, Mark Vientos, these are guys that are just not really stepping up for the team, the entirety, the catcher spot. And for the Royals right now, they're averaging 3 runs per game at home. It's been a big issue. Now, Salvador Perez and Bobby Witt Jr. are both up to 12 plus home runs this season, and Vinny Pasquantino sitting at 275. He's up to 15 bombs as well, but I mean, you just need a little bit more out of the young guys. Jack Caglione, John Rave, Nick Lofton, all in below 200. This has just been completely unacceptable for the team. They're not even really getting on base. Miguel Garcia is getting on base. He's sitting for about a 300 Verlander, but Jonathan India, not a lot of power there. This is a Royals bullpen that really pooped the bed on Friday, but they entered in the series in the top 8 in the big leagues with regards to their ERA. Lucas Ursadge, Carlos Aceves, both supplying a sub-250 ERA. Steven Cruz, even though he did give it up a little bit on Friday, he still got a sub-3 ERA himself. John Schreiber has been pretty solid as well. For the New York Mets, this is a bullpen that's starting to regress. They're now about league average with regards to our bullpen ERA, with having Jose Buto, Max Kranick, who have been really good long guys, currently on the injured list. Oscar Brzobin has seen his ERA go up to north of a 350. Ryan Stanek has not been great, but Reed Garrett, Edwin Diaz, they've been pretty solid in the back half of games. And for the New York Mets, it's been a case where Clay Holmes, I feel like, was getting a little bit fortunate towards the beginning part of the season. It feels like that regression is starting to kick in, as for Mr. Holmes, he's got an ERA that is a 3.29, but you look at that field, you depend more around a 4.26, and that is concerning. 3.7 walks per 9 innings. He's keeping the ball in the yard. He's only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings, but I do think that the Royals are able to get to him a little bit here. For the Royals, I would take a plus 127 or better on the money line, or if you're getting a run half at like a minus 130, I would be willing to take a shot there. And then with regards to total, semi-total at an 8.8, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the sign under. 927, 928 on the card. The Pittsburgh Pirates are on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Simeon Woods Richardson is on the bump for Minnesota, and Mitch Keller goes for the Buccos. And with the Pirates, they're anywhere between minus 112 to minus 120 favorites, and between minus 130 to minus 137 is that number on the Twins. And your total on this game, it is 8.5. The under is minus 120 and the over is even. I set the Twins at a minus 151. I'm going to be willing to back them on the money line. For Mitch Keller, he's got very dramatic home and road splits and always has throughout his career. For Mitch Keller, a guy that at home gives you about 0.7 to 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. His ERA for his career when he's at home, it's hovering right around about a 4, but when you get this guy on the road, it's been very much less than tremendous. A 5 ERA with 1.2 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And for Simeon Woods Richardson, it was a very bad start to the season for him. He had to be sent down to the minor league level, but ever since he has resurfaced, he has been a much better pitcher, as over the course of his last 5 starts, he has given up a combined 4 earned runs. He's mostly going 5 innings in these starts. He had 1 start where he was able to go 6, but he's doing a nice job, be able to keep the ball in the yard. Overall for the season, he's been a pretty average pitcher. A 4.08 ERA, 8 strikeouts, a 3.6 walks per 9 innings, 1.2 home runs allowed per 9, but he has been much, much better recently, giving up 2 hits or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts as well. And now he gets a face-off against the Pittsburgh Pirates lineup that is currently dead last in the National League in terms of runs per game when they are away from home. As for the Pirates, you currently have 3 different guys with north of 4 home runs in this roster, as you've had that out of Oneil Cruz, Andrew McCutchen, and Brian Reynolds. And for Oneil Cruz, it's not even like he's hitting for average. He's been hitting below 220 all season long, and he's full of a cavalcade of different guys that just have not been able to give you a lot. All these guys are hitting a 222 or lower, as you've gotten that out of Oneil Cruz, obviously, Alexander Canario, Henry Davis, throwing their Jared Trollo. When they've trotted him out there, they haven't recently. Jack Swiniski, so it's been rough for the team. Andrew McCutchen, about 337 on base, and we'll give credit to Nick Gonzalez. He's been able to hit about a 275, but you just need a little bit more power out of this lineup. And then flip side for the Minnesota Twins, this is a lineup that is getting a ton out of Byron Buxton. They're a pretty average lineup with regards to run production, but Buxton, 350 on base, 21 home runs. He has been magnificent. And then you've got a quartet of guys: Matt Wallner, Harrison Bader, Cody Clemens, and Trevor Larnach, all between 10 and 13 home runs this season. Wallner not getting on base the way that he did towards the beginning part of the season, but Larnach, Bader, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 250 or so. Ty France, he's hitting about a 250, not as much power, but he's been moved the line a little bit, along with Willie Castro, who's up to about a 360 on base. For the Minnesota Twins, this team has been in the lower half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA ever since May 1st, but the top guys have been so very good for this team. Louis Varland, Yohan Duran, Danny Kalum, these guys have been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. You've had some relatively good appearances from Brock and Roll Stewart. It's when you get into Griffin Jacks, Justin Topa, Cole Sands, guys like this, they're posting up north of 3.75 ERA, that the issues really come up. And for the Pirates, this team has been in the upper half of the big leagues with regards to bullpen ERA really ever since May 1st, as David Benner, after a rough start to the season, he's now got his ERA down below 3. You've been able to get good production as well out of the former Dodgers and Caleb Ferguson, along with Dennis Santana. Both of these guys, a sub-285 ERA. Bryson Ashcraft has been a relatively good long guy as well, so I do think that you're going to get a little bit of a lower scoring game here. I did set my total at an 8.3, so you're at the 8.5. I like the under, and for the Twins, I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 150 on that money line. And we're going to have things up with 929, 930 on the card. The LA Angels do play out the Arizona Diamondbacks as Merrill Kelly goes for the Snakes, and it is Jose Soriano on the bum for the Angels. Angels are finding themselves anywhere between even money to minus 105 in that neighborhood of minus 107 to minus 115 is the number on Arizona. 9 is the total. The under is minus 120, and the over is even with the Diamondbacks. I did set them at a minus 114, so I'm going to be willing to go up to minus 113 on that money line for Jose Soriano. It's been very interesting to look at his home and road splits because for Soriano, he has thrown north of 60 innings on the road thus far this season and has yet to give up a home run on the road. And at home, it's been a little bit more of a struggle for him. When he's been in Los Angeles this season, his ERA has shot up to a 6.07. Now, he's still not giving up a ton of deep balls, 4 home runs allowed in 46 innings, so still has been able to do an okay job there, but his swing and miss stuff is actually up to 10.4 strikeouts per 9 innings at home, 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings away from him, but the walks really start to creep up as well, so he has really made no sense whatsoever. Meanwhile, you've got a guy, Merrill Kelly, that throughout his career, he's got an ERA about 1.25 points higher when he is on the road rather than when he is at home, but he's been able to excel everywhere this year. 341 ERA, 349 fielding dependent, 1 home run, 2.5 walks per 9 innings, and his strikeout stuff is way up as well. 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. Both of these teams are supported by really bad bullpens. Both of these teams in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Hunter Strickland going on the injured list for the Angels is rough, as Jose Fermin has been able to give you a sub-325 ERA, but he's like the only guy that's able to do so. It's Kenley Jansen, Reed Detmers, Brock and Rolberg. I recognize that these guys have been a little bit better recently, Brian Zefrian, but they're all providing north of 350 ERA, and the same really goes for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Shelby Miller has been very good for this bullpen. He's giving you a sub-2 ERA. He's like the only reliable reliever other than Kyle Backus, who's only won 10 innings thus far this season, that is providing an ERA below a 320, as you've had Juan Murillo and also Jalen Beeks, Bryce Jarvis, Ryan Thompson, all these guys give you north of a 370 ERA. But for the Arizona Diamondbacks, top 5 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and Eugenio Suarez has been able to give you 29 bombs. He's been able to hit about a 250 for this team. Geraldo Perdomo, 370 on base. He's up to 10 home runs. Lourdes Gurriel's up to 12 bombs. You've got a lot of guys that are producing. Corbin Carroll, he's up to 21 home runs after he spent some time on the injured list. And Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, 400 on base, home run every about 13 or so at bats. And for the LA Angels, this is a top 5 team with regards to home runs on a per at bat basis. A bottom 5 team in terms of on base percentage as well, as Taylor Ward has done a nice job, give you 21 home runs, but staying just at 227 with a 302 on base. Joe Adell's just been amazing recently, 320 on base with 19 home runs, and then you've got Mike Trout, Zach Neto, along with Logan O'Hoppe. I'll give between 15 and 17 home runs, and for Trout, a 355 on base, but he's hitting just at 231. Zach Neto has been solid, hitting at 275, but then Logan O'Hoppe, 271 on base. You need to get a bit more there. Luis Renifo, a 275 on base with 4 home runs, just simply not going to cut it, and even though Shuno moving the line, getting on base, I do think that the Diamondbacks go out there, get the job done in this one. So I did set the money line at a minus 114. I'm going to be willing to lay with the Snakes, and I'm going to be taking a shot on the total under. I did set my total at an 8.8, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Jon Jansen of Fox Sports Philadelphia, the Gambler, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larry ZM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.